ado, I'll have Congresswoman Judy Chu, who is also on the ballot today.
I am.
For tomorrow, to start first.
Well, 1 day to go. 1 day to go before history is made. And many times you hear the words, this is the most important election ever. But you know what? It is true. This is the most important election ever for many different reasons. And in this case, the reason it is the most important election ever is that we have a chance to have the first Chinese American elected to the state senate for this particular district ever in history. And if Mike is elected, then he gets to serve for 8 years in this position, which means that, I mean, of course he'd have to be reelected, once again, but it makes it much easier if you're already in the position to get reelected. So he has the potential of being in the seat for 8 years, which means that Mike would be able to shape things in the San Gabriel Valley for a decade. A decade, he would be able to help the people of the San Gabriel Valley. Now, it's especially important to get out to vote for Mike because he has an opponent that is just terrible. She is just in the pockets of big oil and tobacco and the prison companies, and it's really offensive that she has gotten $50,000 from the prison companies that are the same ones that are locking up all those children and parents that were separated at the border. Now, you would think that somebody who's an immigrant herself would have some sympathy for those children, for those parents, but no. These prison companies are the worst. I have gone to see the detention centers myself, and I have seen that those private prison companies just make a profit off of the misery of so many immigrants. So for her to do that is so hypocritical. And it's also very, very hypocritical for her to take such huge amounts of money from oil companies who we know polluted the groundwater right here in the San Gabriel Valley, and we're spending millions of dollars to clean that up. We know that clean water is something that we deserve. It keeps us healthy, and we should fight like crazy to have clean water. But no, she is the opposite. She is actually taking money from the polluters. And why are the polluters so interested in having her? Because they don't want Mike Eng. Because they know that Mike Eng will stand up against attempts to pollute even further and to take away the rights of people. Mike Eng will always stand up to make sure that the right thing is done. We know he has such a huge and long history of standing up for the environment. And in fact, he's the one that got millions of dollars to clean up that groundwater pollution. And then he was the one that got a bill passed to say that clean water is a human right. And in fact, the UN said that this was the most important bill ever. And we know that Mike would be so brave in standing up to anybody who would dare to hurt people, such as the big banks who tried to hurt people who were under foreclosure for their homes. So we know that big banks were treating these homeowners very poorly. It was Mike that got the homeowners' Bill of Rights done so that homeowners could stay in their homes, and the LA Times declared that bill to be the most important bill of that year. So those are just some of the examples of what Mike would do to stand up for the people of the San Gabriel Valley. And that's why we need to have Mike in this office, but we can't have him in the office unless people vote. And it's so easy to vote now. If you still have the absentee ballot, it's too late to mail it right now. Well, no, you could take it to the post office if it's actually posted, has a postmark of tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Then they can still put it to the post office. But You can also take it to the polling place and just hand it over. And if you don't have an absentee ballot, you could just go to the polling place and cast your vote. And it only takes a few minutes. It is so easy to do, and yet the whole future of this area depends on it. The future of our quality of life depends on it. So I urge everybody to get out to vote. And there's so many Chinese Americans that you can vote for in this ballot. Betty Yee for state controller, Fiona Ma for state treasurer, me for re-election to the Congress, and then Ed Chow for re-election to the state assembly. But the big one, the one that we need the most help on, would be Mike Eng for state senate. We need every vote. And by the way, I think this will come down to a few number of votes. Yeah, it's not going to be a runaway election. It's going to be like a few handful of votes that will determine this particular election. That's why we need everybody's vote to come out and vote for Mike Eng.